What's up, geeks? Hello, and welcome to Investigation Check, our not-so-regular interview show where we delve deep into some geeky creators and learn about their hobbies, passions, uncover the untold stories of their brilliant minds behind our favorite content. I am your host, Joe, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this quest. If you're new here, because we haven't been around in a while, each episode we embark on a captivating journey, meeting and interviewing creative powerhouses who bring our favorite geek universes to life. From game developers to cosplayers, authors to YouTubers, Investigation Check is your gateway to the hidden depths of their imagination. We believe that the geek space is more than just a collection of fandoms. It's a vibrant community that fuels our passions and inspires us to explore uncharted territories. With Investigation Check, we aim to celebrate the stories behind the creators and gain insights into the magic they wield. That being said, tonight we have the amazing, the fantastic, the exuberant Caitlin. You may know her from Ashira on Queer and Present Danger. She is also a costume designer and a support specialist for the Crit Awards. What is up, Caitlin?
You know, I'm just excited to be here. I'm excited to hang out.
Good. I hope you're ready to roll some dice and learn just dive into you.
We're going to dive into something.
I'm just going to make this as weird as possible for you.
Beautiful. I'm here for it.
Let's get weird. So before we get into the questions, is there anything I'm missing? Anything you'd like to introduce about yourself? Tell the viewers a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Hanscait across all socials. I kind of do a lot with a lot of different communities. Go to a lot of conventions. I DM at conventions. Yeah, you kind of hit it right on the nose. Costuming. I'm here every other Wednesday on Current Present Danger. And yeah, I'm helping out with the Crit Awards this year, which is super exciting.
It's the Crit Awards that we're going to win for New Age Geeks as a whole, right? Yep, that's not...
Oh, yeah,
I see it in your eyes.
You know, if people really want that, they still got a couple more weeks to send in those nominations.
There you go. It's still time. Still time to give our competitors, an edge. They're going to need it. So let's get started. Let's go back to little baby Hans. Tell me the trip into geekdom. What was your first soiree? Soiree. What is it? Soiree or foire?
Either.
All right. I know English. I speak words good. Where did this whole journey for the geek start with you? What was that little taste?
I mean, I grew up in like a sci-fi superhero, just all fantasy household. Youngest kid, and I had one brother that was super into Star Wars, owned every single Star Wars book, therefore I read every single Star Wars book. And then yeah, just comic books, like literature is a big thing. Lord of the Rings was like my comfort series as a kid. So yeah, it's just kind of been always there, which is super nice.
So Lord of the Rings is your comfort series. Is that your favorite series?
Oh, for sure. Oof. It has to be up there. I mean, yeah, there's always that nostalgia tied to it. There's a few other series, so like the Graceling series, like the Seven Kingdoms series, I think was technically called, by Kristen Kishore, is another one that I just adore as a world as a whole that she built, and could probably be maybe my favorite fantasy series.
So for the people that may not know that series, can you give us like the back flap summary?
Yeah, so it is basically everyone is born, or not everyone, most people are born with an ability. Those who have whatever special ability it might be are born with two different colored eyes, and you kind of follow a handful of people who are graced, hence Graceling is what they're called. And yeah, you kind of follow a handful of people through them learning about what that power is and how to use it, and maybe kind of discovering that bit of what we assume is the good and right thing to do isn't always correct.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting series.
And how many books was that? 7, you said?
I think it's technically called the Seven Kingdom
Oh,
series.
okay.
I think she has 3 or 4 written.
You know that you remember who the author was?
Christian Kishore.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So from there, where does like TTRPG start for you?
Much to no one's surprise, was a theater nerd.
You?
Still am technically. I think the first TTRPG I played was like as an 8th grader or maybe a freshman in high school, with a lot of the older theater kids, and of course got into D&D and various other RPGs. And I don't know, there's just something so fun about like that group of kids, like that cohort in and of itself. And then to take that and throw everyone into like a high fantasy setting
Yeah.
is of course so fun, and it is such a gateway entrance into I think TTRPGs.
So
Yeah.
which other RPGs did you play during that time?
Oh goodness, I know we did. I want to say it was maybe Kids on Bikes was one. There was a few that were more like open play, like sandbox style. We were just goofing around versus D&D is a little more like constrained in a way.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I started with 3.5.
Classic.
Yeah, much better than 4th. We don't talk about 4th edition. It's so bad. But yeah, just kind of a mix of them. And then Cthulhu was another one. The older kids love to scare us, and I, as a person, adore Call of Cthulhu. And so yeah, that's definitely one that I'm here for.
I'm gonna Shanghai you into running a Cthulhu game for me.
I'm okay with that. That is probably the majority of the games that I run at conventions are Call of Cthulhu. So
I know. Well,
I'm always down to run a game.
So you said you started with 3.5. So, and you
Yeah.
hate 4. Which you like more, 3.5 or 5?
I think overall 5, just because again, as someone who's played it for quite a while and also just DMing it, 5 is so easy to introduce new people into. Yeah, I think overall 5th edition. There was a few kind of cool things with 3.5. But yeah, overall it has to be 5th edition for me.
Okay. So how long in total do you think you've been playing D&D?
Gosh, probably 14 to 15 years.
Nice.
That makes me feel really old, but you know, it's fine.
So, do you have a favorite class or anything like that?
Oh my gosh, for sure. I am 100% a cleric main.
Okay.
Like hands down.
What about clerics do you like?
I think part of it is people love to kind of shit on clerics a little bit. I kind of find them to be a super versatile class, really.
Right.
You can build them to be, of course, like healing. If that is what your goal is to be, that is one of the most important things to fill. Ask any party who has no healing magic at all. But you can build them to be melee based and take that damage and deal it back. Ashira that I play on Wednesdays, she can technically heal, yes, but she was more trained to fight, and that's one thing with her being a Tempest cleric, is that ability to max out lightning and thunder damage.
Yeah.
I built her to deal a lot of damage in one go, and then pick up the pieces afterwards.
So which kind of cleric do you like playing more, the damage cleric or the healing cleric?
You know, I personally, I love playing a tanky damage cleric. I have one that I've played now for 4 years, just level 20,
Nice.
like 270 HP. And because of her build and like being this late in the game, I think even if I just hit with my mace, my average damage is like 48 points or something. She's built to just wreck things. But she's also a life cleric, so if she needs to, like, can in fact keep the party up. But there's just something fun. Like, clerics get such good damage-based spells too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do you rank when you're getting into a D&D game? How do you rank like combat, role play, mystery, exploration?
I mean, role play is probably always going to be in that number one spot for me. There's just something about, especially if it's a table where everyone really trusts each other, that goes for players and DM and players themselves, where you can get into like a deeper or, you know, over time a more like complex role play. That storytelling aspect that you can all do together, it's like hands down my favorite thing. I also love combat. I love complex combats, both like as a DM and as a player. I love sitting there and being like, okay, what are we going to do to get through this? Especially when you get into like high level D&D.
Yeah.
Mystery is fun too. I like trying to figure things out. I'm not always the smartest person sitting at that table, so it's always good to have people who are better at figuring out what's going on.
I know that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that mystery and like exploration are still like key components, but for me it's definitely a mix between roleplay and like I love combat.
Yeah. So I know you've already said you've DM'd before and you DM quite a bit. Which do you prefer, being behind or in front of the screen?
I think I do love playing, but I think I prefer to be behind the screen.
Okay.
I think there's something so fulfilling in taking what story you've done, whether that's a pre-done module or homebrew or a mix, taking that and then taking all of the story elements that your players give you and being able to weave a tale that all of your players are invested in and enjoying and everyone's just having fun. I don't know, I think that's one of my favorite things is when like I'm able to successfully facilitate my entire table having just a wonderful time and be able to tell this story together with them. I love it. There's nothing better.
So let me ask you this. As a long-term DM, what is the one thing you want to get from your players that you've just never gotten? Or maybe you have gotten it once or twice, but it's like the reason you DM, the thing that you want to, like, you beg for to get your players to.
Ooh, okay. There, especially when you've played with the same people, and again, there is that level of trust built. Getting into those more like emotional scenes where your player gives you something about their character, or maybe a story element from their backstory that they're like, here is this. I trust you completely to do whatever you're going to do with this. That is like something like that's such an honor as a DM to have someone come to you and be like, I know you're going to do a wonderful job. Do whatever you want with this. And of course, like that being said, there's always like the check-ins. There's always, are you like, okay, like this is maybe something I'm thinking about. But I think that's one thing with like younger tables or tables maybe haven't played together as long, that you don't always get right away. And, yeah.
So what would be some tips you would give like new DMs to like kind of get to that point?
Ooh. I think one for me, especially in the beginning, was like, it's okay to do whatever you're gonna do and like still have that nugget of like fear. That's okay. Like, as someone who's DM'd for over a decade, every time I sit behind the screen, there's always that little bit of like, oh my gosh, am I gonna be able to like pull off or do whatever we're doing tonight?
Yeah.
My first thing is like, just do it. You are going to have fun, especially if it's the right group of people. if it's the right table. And then my other part of that is to trust yourself when you're sitting behind the screen. There's always going to be rules that maybe I don't know in the moment, but I'm going to make a decision and say, we'll come back to this. I'm going to trust like my choice in that moment to continue our story, or to sometimes maybe that trust is bending the rules, or knowing like this is a story I'm telling with my players. I know where this is going and it's okay to do this. I think sometimes it's really easy for young DMs to doubt themselves, especially if they have players who have been playing for quite a while. To maybe have that bit of an intimidation of like, oh, they know so much, I might not know enough. Especially like trying out new systems. I think just trusting yourself and letting yourself have fun is a huge part of it.
Okay. So kind of going off like that like experience behind the screen, are you more of like, I have a really set of notes, or are you kind of like, I have a very rough overdraft and then I just wing it?
It's a bit of both. I do a lot of different systems. Like Call of Cthulhu is very much like, here's the story, this is the preset what we are doing. With D&D, especially if it is something that I've homebrewed and we are now playing in, I will do a bulk of the work ahead of time. So like, for example, I have about 30 cities just fully fleshed out in a side document. And if we're coming up to a town or whatever, I will just randomly pull one. It is preset, ready to go. As for like, I'm sitting down, this is session time, I will have like an outline of bullet points of like, here's what needs to happen during session. And in the moment, like, as any DM can attest, your players are going to do whatever they want to do. My goal is to just hit as many of those bullet points along the way as possible, knowing that I have like this whole backup of pre-done like knowledge, whether that's maps, people, places, that I can just throw in if I have to. And then like after session, like, yep, this is lore, this is where the city exists now, this is where they met this person. So it's a bit of both. I definitely I will wing it during a session 100%.
Fair.
I'm not like a prep every week person.
I prep the world. That should be enough for you people.
Basically, yeah, because again, a lot of those train tracks you spend so much time laying are going to be derailed so quickly by your player's own designs. So
So when you're creating like the worlds or your NPCs and stuff like that, where does that inspiration come from? Is that like a little bit of you? Is that a little bit of things you've like been inspired by? What does that look like?
I think it's a big mix. I'm definitely like, I actually carry like a notebook around with me, funnily enough. And like throughout the day, maybe it might be like a song that I listen to and it's like, ooh, this like fits a vibe that I could definitely build a character around. Or if I'm reading something or watching media, or you'll kind of get this when you're just hanging with your friends who are also all DMs and you're just throwing ideas around. 100%. We all like are like, that's really smart. Write it down somewhere for later.
It's out notebooks.
Basically, everyone's like, I'm gonna put that in the notes app on my phone. Like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of just anytime I have a thought, it gets written down because I will 100% never remember it again.
The curse of the DM. You'll come up with a million ideas and remember none of them.
None of them. Constantly.
So what's that process like for you when you're creating your own character, for like when you're as a player in a game?
Yeah. This is so funny. I'm someone who loves to write.
Okay.
And so like I just have a handful of like backstory ideas that I've had that are just written, and I will almost always write out like a key moment in whatever this character's past is. Maybe it's that moment that drove them to go on the path they are now. Or like I'll write 5 truths I know about this character, and then I'll be like, you know what kind of fits this vibe? a fighter or a ranger, and then I'll pick like a subclass that fits what story element I went with. So I do it kind of backwards a little bit.
Okay.
Where I typically will have an idea before I even know what their build or race or class is going to be.
Okay.
And yeah, sometimes it is fun to min-max. I will admit there is some joy in min-maxing, but I also will 100% nerf my character if it fits the story.
Yeah.
Like, I will put those stats where the story says they should be. 100%.
So, is there any parts of you that are like constant in your characters, or is there any like mirror images of yourself that you put in your characters?
I think yeah, and I I feel like it's pretty universal where you'll sit down to play a character and you'll get like 10, 20 sessions in, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I understand this so much better now because I too also do this thing. Or like I think the funniest one that I like didn't catch was I have a whole character built around where like if she touches people she steals memories.
Okay.
And I'm someone who hates hugs. And one of my friends like pointed out months into this game, they're like, this is 100% just you. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't need to call me out like this. However, you're not wrong.
Okay.
There's I feel like there's always some piece of you that gets put into a character, whether you mean to or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So switching into a little bit more specifics about you. You are one of the stars of Queer and Present Danger. Yeah. So I use a star as the most honorary title because that is what you are.
OG thanks.
How, first off, did you even hear about this show? Like, what did that process look like? Just how'd you come to find us?
Oh gosh, that was quite a while ago that you guys put out a casting call. I had a friend, I think it's pretty common in our space of either they will tag you in like a casting call or send it to you and say like, hey, I think like you would vibe with this group. I think this sounds like a cool premise. It had been like so long since I had done anything on like stream, and I had a friend that watches your Monday show.
Okay. Hi, friend. Love you.
They basically were like, hey, I think you would have fun. It's like been forever since you've done this.
I know, it's been a while.
Yeah, sure, why not? I will give it a go. And yeah, it was really fun. All the one-shots we did, and then getting into the show with CC has been really fun. And it's been fun watching her like session to session like continue to grow and feel more comfortable as someone who DMs a lot. Like I love seeing her become more confident in that role. Yeah. It just makes me happy.
Yeah, it's been fun watching her growth too. It's been fun watching the whole group. You guys have such great chemistry. Like for 4 people that like just come together, the chemistry is great in the show.
Yeah. I think the running joke was I was the only one that didn't know anyone else in the server because everyone else knew each other, and then it was just me, and I was like, hello.
Hi, I'm here. Everyone knows me.
Yeah.
So what's been kind of your favorite moment so far in Queer and Present Danger?
Ooh, I think I personally absolutely loved just the chaos that ensued, like unintentionally from Bloom.
Okay.
And the whole dynamic that goes on with Bloom specifically, we did technically light a temple on fire through a whole skew of events. I think just that scene in and of itself just is so hilarious to me, and it was so well done on like Cece's part.
Yeah.
And like watching it back, all of us as players are sitting there like, what is happening? It was so well done. None of us expected it.
Yeah.
It's good.
What what like questions you have without spoilers for maybe stuff in Ashira's stuff in Ashira's backstory, and maybe being a little light. on for the rest of the people who haven't caught up to QAPD, what are like the questions you have about this story so far? Because it is bananas.
There's a lot going on. Just the cliffhanger we left off last time. Why is it mirrors? There are so many things coming through mirrors. And I don't understand.
Okay.
That's probably like that, and just anyone who has watched, and I won't give it away if they haven't, but like what the heck is up with D? Because it is such a weird, I know, right? You can never trust someone.
Never trust D.
Never trust D. It's part of me wants to believe his sob story like so badly, and the other part of me is like, either it's a lie or like, yes, it happened, but he like, it's like that turning point where you can either have this happen and choose to do good from it, or like let it make you a villain. And I'm like, which way did he actually go?
Yeah.
And it's really leaning one way right now.
Oh boy.
Where you just keep going, walk past that one. That was, I didn't know. It's a good thing Dom's not here.
So, again, without spoilers, what was kind of the inspiration behind Ashira?
Ooh. So funnily enough, again, it's kind of that same thing of I kind of knew I wanted to play a cleric. Again, that's a comfort class. It's a favorite for me. And I had started writing out her backstory, and one thing when I was chatting with Cece is we weren't really sure where she was going to be from. And I had this idea, and it's not spoilery, but I had this idea for a floating city in the ocean that moved with the currents.
Okay.
And so before Ashira was even fully built, Cece and I sat in a voice call and built out this entire city.
Nice.
And then I took elements from how we built that city and put it back into Ashira's backstory. And then from there was like, picked the god I wanted her to be tied to. Because again, Cece and I sat and talked a whole bunch about the Pantheon. And then was like, okay, she's gonna be a Tempest cleric. And just kind of went from there. Yeah. And then of course we rolled for stats and all of that. And yeah.
I love that, because like I know as a DM, I love building parts of the world with my players. And when I'm a player, if I don't have that building session with my DM, I feel lost on character development. Like,
for sure.
I need that like back and forth to help me kind of feed, because it's just hard to like kind of get a good idea of how you fit in this world without that session. At least for me. Do you feel the same way?
I do, on both sides, but like as a player, I normally even have like a whole long list of like questions or things about my character that I fill out ahead of time. And being able to sit with a DM and kind of flesh out some of those questions, especially like if you're playing a character tied to a deity, there's a certain level of like background knowledge that you almost have to have.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads directly into being able to role play. When another player asks in character, your character, a question about the gods, and I'm able to immediately jump in and give my answer or assumptions from Ashira's point of view. Right. Versus kind of having to pause game and be like, so what do I know?
Right.
Yeah. And on the DM side, I will not ever start a game without having had one-on-ones with my players, followed typically by like a session 0 with maybe 1 or 2 of them to allow them to feel out their character before we play as a whole group.
Yeah.
Because it's so helpful.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's like, it's very, you never want to just, at least for me, you never want to just throw your players like into the situation where it's like, I don't know who I am or what I do. I have this story I wrote by myself, but I don't know what the fuck to do. Yeah, I agree with you.
And like the one time that never happens is like conventions,
Yeah.
which is so funny. Where it's like you normally come up and in that moment you're like, this is my character's personality, and we're rolling with it.
Roll the dice. I want to do this as an accent today, and I'm going to wrap my whole character around it.
My default is just the most northern Minnesotan accent, and just normally like super just nice is the default for my character's personality because it's so easy to slip into for me.
I either go full New York or full Irish.
I love both of those options. That's phenomenal.
This is what I know. This is who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
You're casting Ashira for the live action Grand Present Danger TV show. Who's playing Ashira?
It's such a weird choice, I feel, but like Karen Gillian.
Shaved head Karen Gillian. I could see it.
I just absolutely love her. And I also like to think about like Ashira is so tall. And
yeah.
It's Karen. So that's a huge part of it. But no, I love Karen as an actress. Like I just think it'd be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great. So, now this is for our fan artists out there. Which scene do you want to see fan art of?
I know immediately. Also, I have to do one shout out. We had someone recently throw in art into our art on the server. Also, if you're not on our Discord, you should be.
Get on it.
Let's not shout out to them because they made a Queen of Cups.
Oh my god! I put it in
artwork of Ashira.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And I've seen Letz's work in other servers with different shows, and they have like a whole line of tarot cards.
Yeah.
And like they have a very distinct style, and I just think I absolutely love the one she did of Ashira. So like shout out to Let's. If I could have any scene, I think it would have to be kind of our somewhat cliffhanger moment from last week of Ashira having her arm halfway through this mirror and just fully paralyzed and everyone trying to pull her out of the mirror.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, I just feel like if an artist could do that scene, it would be so sick.
Yeah.
Because I made a decision. It was not the right decision.
Speaking of Let's, though, I saw when she put that out, I was like, fucking love this. I want to make all New Age Geek shows. I want to develop like tarot cards for all the like across the whole show, all the shows, like one deck for all of the everything.
That'd be so cool. Yeah, Let's
love it.
They are just amazing, and again, they kind of have a very distinct art style.
Yeah, it's perfect.
I just really enjoy.
It's like a perfect tarot card style too.
Yeah.
Ugh. All right, let's see here. Thank you, Sunrise, for the follow. Yeah.
That would be Let's. Hi, welcome in. I said your name 3 times, and then they appeared.
Just the cheat up here. I'm talking shit, Let's. I was humble bragging on your art. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, your art's phenomenal. Shout out to
Jeez
everything
Louise.
you do. Yeah.
All right. Enough of Let's. Sick of her. Sick of them being fabulous. They're fucking great art. All right. Focusing back up. Who is your dream guest member for the show? Who's that one person? Like, if we could get anyone to show up on the show, who would it be?
Just give the most selfish answer of Lydia Corinne, who's one of like my closest friends.
Lydia.
I DM for her and she DMs for me, and they're just a phenomenal player. And I just think that would be fun. Like, I would enjoy the heck out of having them on the show.
All right, I'm gonna talk to Cameron real quick here. Hey Lydia, where you at? You want to come on the show?
Chat.
I know you're in chat right now. Hope you're fucking ready.
Also, hi Lydia, I love you.
Oh my god. So, as a player who now that you're finally, I don't know, how often do you get to play in like long-term campaigns as a player?
Ooh, long term. So right now I'm in actually a few more games than I have been in a while, which is really fun. And a handful of them we alternate like weeks. I just finished up like a 4-year game.
Wow,
Um, like again, we got all the way through like level 20,
that's amazing.
and yeah, that was it had been a while since I had done one quite that long. I've have a few under my belt that were, 2-3 years.
Right.
But this last one, it was phenomenal. It was so funny at the end of it, like looking back of how emotionally invested we were in our characters by the end of that story.
Yeah, 4 years is a long time.
Yeah. And I adore my DM that we'd had, and he has been playing for like far longer than me, DMing for far longer than me. Like I learned so much from him.
Mhm.
And I think a couple of like my really close friends I have taken away from that game.
Yeah.
Again, even if you're playing a character, you're sitting at that table together for 6 hours a week for 4 years. Like we kind of, in a
Wow.
weird sense, saw each other grow so much, both like at and away from the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I absolutely love it. But I have been steadily now playing more than I'm DMing, which is kind of fun.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
Always a good
right now I
time.
just have 2 games that I DM. One at a local game store on Saturday afternoons, and then I have another one starting up here that I'm excited. It's a new system for me, so.
What system is it?
It's called The Sunken Isles.
Okay.
They had a Kickstarter a couple years back, and I bought like the huge set that came with all the maps and goodies.
Fancy.
And it's a 5e setting, which is super fun.
Okay.
And yeah, I just got everyone basically ready to start now. We got through all of our session zeros, and I'm so excited.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. What advice, as now a veteran player, would you give to new players or players that want to like kind of get more into the role play side of their character? What is that like? What's the process look like for you, and what advice would you give for the players?
Yeah, I mean, as far as getting into my own characters, I am someone who loves Spotify. All of my characters have a playlist. That helps. And then I kind of talked a little bit about before. I have like a big long preset questionnaire, and I offer it to my players if they want it. But it's just a whole list of questions about your character, and some of them are super basic. Do they like the obvious of like, are they hiding anything like physically about themselves? What secrets do they have? Into the more of, if they had to save one member of the party, who would it be? And like that answer changes throughout the course of me playing a character.
Right.
So I'll go back and edit, but it's a whole bunch of like hypotheticals that help me as a player, again, kind of have an idea of like maybe how my character would react to a situation. So when it comes up in game, it's not just like a, oh god, what do I do? But maybe something you've thought about a little bit. I find that helpful, and like there are so many versions of that online that you can just find that are like 50 questions to ask yourself about your D&D character. Yeah, I think that might be a little bit of my advice too, of if you don't want to go like super deep into it, especially you're a new player, always talk about like, what are 5 things that you know for certain about your character? And that could be maybe something that they love or despise. What's their like deepest fear? And maybe kind of along with that, what's maybe a more minor fear that they have? Just like small things that allow you to flesh out that character a little more. That makes it easier for you to kind of understand them or how you want to play them. A bit, I think, helps. And then as far as like the role-playing side of it, it goes back to that, like, being able to trust yourself and the people you're with.
Mm-hmm.
You have to kind of be willing to put yourself into those role-playing situations. If you're never comfortable enough or like ready to maybe take that step of like your first few times at a table of just jumping in and role-playing, starting a scene or joining in on a scene. Like you have to, it's gonna be terrifying the first few times, but you just have to do it, and at some point you won't even think about it anymore. It's kind of, I guess, yeah.
So let me ask you this. What would be some advice you give to new players as like faux pas to avoid?
Ooh. I think one of the easiest ones for new players to maybe do without even realize they're doing is to take away another like PC's like choice in a moment.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to join into a scene that is either going on, or if you're going to start one, to be like a little more cognizant of it's not just what you or your character want in this moment. There is a whole table of people, and this is, you know, a cooperative game. You all have to provide input into the story, to not pull or focus it onto one thing super specific. There's times for that, for sure. There are moments where, yes, it is going to be 100% about your character and the story and the choices you are going to make. But in general, to just be cognizant of, like, even just the vibe of the table. If this is a super serious moment, maybe we don't come in and do the funny thing right now.
Right.
There's always a time for comedic relief.
Yeah.
Vice versa. If this is a really lighthearted moment, maybe now's not the time to unveil that deepest, darkest secret. I think it is, like, I guess my biggest thing to avoid, like, with the faux pas is to just be aware of what's going on at the table in that moment.
Yeah.
And kind of judge, does this fit right now?
Yeah.
Because there's a time and place for anything you want to do at that table. Right. It's finding that moment.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'll give you a round of applause. That was great advice. That
was
fucking really solid sounding advice. That was articulate and well thought out. It's perfect. So switching over to some of the more rules side of D&D, like what kind of constitutes metagaming for you? Like what does that look like for you?
Funnily enough, the whole discourse around metagaming is always funny to me. A lot of things that I think DMs constitute as metagaming, I'm totally fine with my players doing. To be fair, like if you're gonna sit around that table and we're in a combat, or we end session like right before things gonna kick off, I know all of my players have a no DM group chat. Bastards. I know that they are doing tactical, like, okay, this is where we're at. Maybe we need to do this first. And again, you know, that's going to be here nor there once combat gets going. Really the only place I draw the line is if you're putting input into the decisions you're making, or if you're table talking about things that your character does not know.
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, nope, your character's never fought a black dragon before. You don't know that they're immune to this.
Yeah, my biggest example is always like,
why would you choose the damage?
Yeah, my biggest example is always, you know, your characters would never know without dealing with a troll that you need to kill it with fire.
Yeah,
like that's my that's like, if anyone ever asks me like definition metagaming, that's it.
That might be the one. And sometimes, like, if my players make a case for it, like, maybe it's...
Of course, there's always exceptions.
A fighter that is so well-traveled.
Right.
Have I ever seen XYZ? I'm like, you know what? Yeah, roll for it.
Yeah.
I will let the dice decide. The one thing that I do, and again, it's something that's, like, splits DMs, death saves at my table are kept secret.
Ooh, that is a controversial
That is one
take.
thing
Oh my
players
goodness.
aren't allowed to tell. Now, here's the thing. I will have you roll and tell me, or like even before you roll, say you've just gone down, we come around to the top of your next turn, Joe. I'm going to ask you, like, what is your character thinking about right now? What is the first thing that pops in your head? I might prompt you to give us a moment, and then I'm going to have you roll, message me, and I'm going to move on to the next thing.
You sneaky bastard.
Because, as a cleric main, my first instinct is going to be to go get that person up. But sometimes I'm like, they can wait a couple rounds.
Yeah.
I need to focus on this. And I know that, like, yeah, they've passed 2 death saves.
Yeah.
I'm 100% guilty of that swaying of looking over and be like, they're fine.
Oh, I've got at least 3 more shots.
Now, if you want to take a moment on your turn and, like, actually take a good look at them, yeah, I'll tell you if they're maybe barely holding on or if they look okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, death saves are the one thing that my players aren't allowed to talk about at the table.
Ooh.
Which is so controversial, but it
but
leads to really good RP.
Yeah.
And it's something that they know going in too. Like, it's not a surprise for any of my players. Yeah, shout out to Lydia calling it evil but fun. That is completely accurate. Yeah, it's something that that's probably the one hard you're not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, you're gonna sit there, you're gonna talk and be like, ooh, if you hold on for 1 second, I have something I could really do if you want to hold your action, like,
Yeah.
Because realistically, on a battlefield, you could yell out, say, wait just a sec, and cast something. So again, it's all happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can metagame. But
all right. So I think we're going to take a quick break real quick because this conversation is going deep. We are we're doing good here. So I want to give us a break here, get a little refresher, and we'll be right back in about 5 minutes. All right. See you guys soon. right, everyone, we're back. All right, so we've talked about you playing D&D. We've talked about you DMing, you playing. We've talked about your history. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other things you're interested in. I want to know, first off, how did you become a costumer, and what does that life look like?
Yeah.
How the hell do you just design costumes for people?
Oh goodness. I think again, a little bit of it goes back to I was a huge theater nerd.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to again grow up in a household where, like my mom sewed.
Okay.
So like I was that kid that always had like homemade Halloween costumes. And I learned like at a young age how to sew. And get kind of having been in theater, there's always alterations to be done, and like I was always super interested in that. And like Renaissance fairs as a kid were another huge thing. Like my mom used to make all my outfits, and then at some point I started making my own.
Wow.
I love being able to create things that I know will like look good on someone, because again, when you think like theater, typically like we have a huge wardrobe. That's not going to work for a lot of people that come through year to year for different productions. So right now I work with our local theater, and I am kind of our wardrobe manager. I'm a seamstress, what my contract says, but we just did Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
Which was stressful, but it was so fun to be able to do all of the like female villagers from scratch, which was a huge undertaking. There was a lot of nights where I was up till 3 a.m. sewing. And making like Belle's dress was another one that I had so much fun doing. And yeah, I kind of at some point in college started taking commissions for mostly Ren Fair.
Okay.
I do a lot of period pieces. There's a lot of crossover between a lot of things you see for play production to Renaissance stuff. There's a lot of similar spacing there. And so kind of from there, as I got more into cosplay later in college, I started a lot of times with just some of my own stuff, but then some of my commissions were specifically people needing things for cons, which is really fun. And yeah, I enjoy doing it. There's a bit of a creative side to it of being able to design something or take someone else's vision that they've put together or like drawn, and to actually create what they've come up with in their own mind. That's always it's fun to do, and I just enjoy doing it.
Which kind of, so I have a lot of questions. What part of first off, which do you like doing more? Like something you have a very strict, like this is what it has to look like, and you like being able to accomplish that vision, or is it something like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, I would love to get your inspiration on it, and you get to be a little bit more free flow? Which do you prefer to have?
Creatively, being able just to take input and just go to town.
Yeah.
Stress level wise, sometimes it is nice for someone to say, this is what I want. This is the color scheme, the fabric, the general design. That's a lot less stressful. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm also definitely the person who will just kind of like free do the math in my head of like, oh yeah, that should be enough fabric to do this, which stresses if anyone sews understands that it's not how you do it. So when I just know what I'm doing and know the exact everything I need, it's a lot less stressful on my part. But it is fun to be able to again, like color theory and fit of a dress or a top or a jacket, what have you, knowing that it's going to suit that person and be flattering. I love when I'm done with something and they put it on and they just love it.
Yeah.
Which is always the goal. The goal is to have the person you're making it for be happy, but there's something that just I don't know, I appreciate being able to make something that someone else is so happy to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that creative process like for you when you're like, they give you like a little bit of detail, like, hey, this is what I'm doing, and like, which parts do you take from like your subject? Which parts how do you come up with like your own inspiration for that? What does your artistic process look like for that?
There's I follow like a lot of fashion designers, not even so much for like what they make, but maybe silhouettes or shapes or an interesting use of a particular fabric, because every fabric's going to layer so differently. I love to look at media, so I'm someone who will watch the behind the scenes. Like Cinderella, the live action Cinderella, did a phenomenal behind the scenes looks just at the costuming portion. It was like a 40-minute long like documentary about it.
Yeah.
Things like that where they actually kind of walk you through what their process was, what fabrics they chose and why. Being able to look at a scene from a movie or a show and see how that like the outfit moved or interacted with that person, and kind of be able to pick and choose what elements I want to create the ensemble that someone wants me to make for them.
Is there a particular movie that you like love the costuming of that you really use for inspiration?
Oh my gosh. I hate to say like Cinderella. Like that in and of itself, all of the dresses are just so well made. And when you look at specifically her dress, because they made 2 of them, I believe it was either 2 or 3. The total amount of fabric in her skirt on that dress, like it amounts to like 2 miles worth of fabric.
Jeez Louise.
And they talk about the hours and just days and weeks and months that went into like making these dresses. And they have 2 of them. One that was like allowed to get dirty and one that they kept pristine. Just the composition, how they made it to fit her body to give that illusion of her being so much tinier than she was. The skirt and just the structure of the skirt, you have that much fabric that's heavy. So now you have to have a hoop to keep that out, and just to get the movement that it has, it goes into like the way that they sewed it, the techniques that they used. The layering to get that particular color of blue, because it's not all just blue fabric. There's white, opalescent, purple, dark blue, light blue. So color theory plays into that. And like rightfully so, they won a ton of awards for costuming for that movie. For that one, for the dresses. Otherwise, when you look at like armoring side of it, so I do a little bit of the armor work. When you look at that side of it, like Lord of the Rings is another one to like pull from, or Amazon just did a show set in that world, in Tolkien's world, and the costume design from that show as well is another place that I kind of really like to look at currently to kind of pull a little bit of inspiration from.
Is there like a fabric you hate working with?
Tulle.
Why?
Yeah.
Give it to me. Why?
Tulle, and maybe a little bit of like organza too. It's a nettier fabric.
Okay.
And you can get like different like weave to it, so like a tighter like netted versus like a looser. First off, it just like it sticks to itself in like a weird way, where if you're trying to get layers to something, sometimes it's gonna sit where it wants to sit, and it's frustrating. The other part of it is as you're sewing, it kind of if you're not paying attention, it's really easy for it to either tear the thread, so then you have to go back, redo that section, or even like the tooling itself can tear if you put too many layers together.
Okay.
It's really prone to tear along that line where you sewed. And so like I'll use it for volume on skirts. But if I have other options, I will always go for an option other than tooling. And there's just things that look nicer too.
Right. I don't know what Tool is, but I'm engaged. I hate Tool already. Fucking Tool, such a pain in the ass to work with. What is your favorite fabric to work with then? Like, what's your go-to?
Ooh. I like when I'm able to do dresses. And it's like a silk organza is what it is, and it is a very like soft, thinner, like lightweight. The movement to it is just beautiful. Like it makes gorgeous dresses.
Okay.
That's probably one of my favorites. You have to be careful when you're sewing because again, it's really easy for it to catch and then like tear a little or like start to come apart. So it's one like you have to be like cognizant when you're working with it of like what you're doing because I have more than once caught it on like the presser foot of my sewing machine. And that's frustrating, but it's pretty when it's done.
So, I think I already know the answer here, but do you prefer to do more feminine shaped clothing or masculine shaped clothing?
Men are easier.
Typically.
I do like making dresses though. Like there's something fun. Again, like I don't know, most girls like you just want to go play dress up. Like going to Ren Fair as like a fairy or a princess or what have you, like it's great. I enjoy making those type of outfits. Like Belle's dress was insane.
Yeah.
But it was so fun when it was done, and like it was just really pretty. Like there's something fun about doing that. It's a lot more stressful.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
So let me let you plug yourself here a little bit. Where can people, number one, find your work?
I have not had a website for a couple years. Most of the time I will do any back and forth via email. The email that I use for any like commissions, I typically use it's just my name, Caitlin_Hansen at Yahoo. That's basically my business email. Okay. Yeah, I will take requests. If people want examples of my work, I'm always happy to share. It just kind of became one of those things where I don't know, the upkeep on a website and putting the time and energy into making sure all the pictures are like current and having like pricing is hard to do with what I do because every single piece is going to be different.
Yeah, I know it's a complex pricing system.
And so a lot of times it more tends to be a conversation. And at this point, it's a little bit more word of mouth.
Yeah.
Again, the bulk of my stuff is Ren Fair themed. And so anyone who is kind of involved in like our local Renaissance fair or any of the kind of upper Midwestern ones, again, that tends to be a word of mouth of, oh, if you're needing a piece created, like so-and-so would be great. And that's not just me. There's a couple people who do like beautiful leather work that like I would recommend. So it's one of those things where it is at this point, it's more word of mouth.
Yeah.
It's not my main job. It's something that I love to do. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that.
So how active are you with taking commissions? Like, is it something like how many would you take on at once?
It kind of depends. This time of year tends to be my busy season for Ren pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I will probably average 3 to 5 commissions a month if it's not overly complex. There are some pieces that I'll, let them know it will take a couple months to complete. Just like the sheer amount of time.
Shame. Fucking
shout out to Lydia.
Shame,
10 out of 10
Lydia.
joke. Let's go. Yeah, so it really varies. Right now I do probably average 3 to 5 a month.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
I feel like I have no idea how that process would work, but that sounds like a lot.
Yeah. I think the biggest bulk of it typically is sourcing the fabric and then getting everything cut. Once everything's ready to sew, like I just sit and sew. I throw on typically like a D&D or some other stream. Like I will just binge watch an entire like recorded D&D series and just sew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good time. I enjoy it. And right now I'm outside of like my normal theater. So if I'm doing a theater production, that's my only focus. So
that makes sense. So how do we go from theater kid, D&D player, costume designer, to working at the Crit Awards? Where do these two connect?
Again, it was one of those things where knowing so many people in like just the D&D community, and those who like knew me very well, my type of personality and just the things that I love about our community, very much when the Crit Awards had posted they needed some more help going forward. I had some people message me that were so certain that I would love helping out with this.
Yeah.
And kind of after last year, kind of like hearing and witnessing just the excitement and just how much everyone had adored the event and everything that had happened, and just the premise of the event, it was something that I was excited to kind of throw my name in for as well. So hi Misfit, I love you.
Misfit.
Yeah, so I put my name in, and yeah, it's just one of those things where I feel extremely honored to be included in the group that is working, with Ivy and the whole Crit Awards team. They are just so phenomenal. And I'm so excited for this year. I think it's really nice to be able to be a part of something that is recognizing just how like diverse and immense really like the TTRPG setting as a whole really is. Whether that's streams, podcast, music, design, like all of it kind of goes in, and it's very I don't know, I don't want to say overwhelming. It's so lovely to be a part of it, and I take so much joy from seeing how excited everyone continues to be for the event.
Yeah.
We're a little over like halfway through the first round of nominations, which is super cool. And I think like right now we're sitting just shy of like 2,500.
That's crazy. I can't believe New Age Geeks got 2,500 nominations.
That's crazy. I can count it all of them. Definitely that many.
It's amazing. I'm so excited.
I just adore everyone that I feel so honored to be able to help.
Yeah.
And to be a part of it.
That's awesome. So I don't know if you guys have talked about yet. So let me preface with that. What can you reveal about this year and the Crit Awards? What is the theme? Can you reveal the theme?
According to Misfit, the theme is Crazy Town Banana Pants.
Amazing. That is the official word, and if you don't think I'm showing up in a fucking banana outfit now, wrong.
Our theme is glitz, glam, and great old ones.
Okay.
Which I am a fan of. Yeah.
So for people who may not know what that means, what does that style look like? What can we expect?
I I mean, the great old ones is, of course, a callback to Call of Cthulhu. Chaosism is one of our partners, so one of our sponsors for the event. And yeah, glitz and glam is pretty self-explanatory. It's very much. I think it'll just be fun for everyone to dress up, whether you like full send the theme or not, or if you want to go Misfits Lane and go Crazy Town Banana Pants.
That's now it's 100%.
If you really want to, kind of like last year, dress what makes you feel good. If you want to go full send for the theme, or if you're still in your cosplay from the day or what have you, we're just excited to have so many people from our community there to celebrate each other and everything that everyone does. Because again, we have so many things that are just constantly happening within the community, and it's really nice to be able to recognize people for all the work they've put in.
So maybe people don't know Call of Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about like 1920s Americana?
Yeah, kind of. That's kind of the default setting for I just shout out to Misfit being phenomenal. Yeah, if you want to go for the 1920s full glam look,
flappers,
totally thick. Like, yeah, just have fun with it.
Yeah. Chat room is out of control tonight.
No, it's great. I am enjoying this chaos that is now happening. Everyone is talking about outfits, and I'm here for it. This is all I wanted. We're derailing. This is now just about outfits, Joe.
All right, fine. For when I present at the Crit Awards this year, right, Ivy? When you start in those hiring processes, think I'm not going to be in full like Peaky Blinders outfit. Fucking
that would
full
be so
blown.
Sick, though.
Full blown like razor blades in the hat. I might kill somebody. We don't know.
We have a great head of security, Sir Pfeffers, just in case things do get out of hand, I guess.
Coming for you, Pfeffers. Just stage dive on the Pfeffers.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh, God. I have a problem. I'm sorry. All right. So let's dive in a little bit more of a serious conversation. Mm-hmm. Let's dive in a little bit more about you. So role playing for a lot of people is a way to kind of process some of their emotions, some of those, some of those deeper things for them. What, if any, is that process like for you? What do you hope to achieve with your role playing? Like what is that kind of transition? It'll be fucking WWE. We'll go from the fucking top.
Shout out to Ivy in the chat for keeping it real.
Ivy, I love you. I gotta live my truth. Anyways.
Oh goodness. I mean, yeah, it kind of does go back to that. Sometimes we either on purpose or inadvertently put parts of ourselves in our characters. And I think it can be very cathartic to maybe explore different aspects of ourselves through our characters. I know, like, there's been studies on it that talk about how good it is for people who have, certain things, how helpful a tool it can be. I know, kind of on a slightly personal note, I work with our ALC, our Area Learning Center. And it can be such a great tool for, like, some of those high school kids to kind of sit and actually be able to work on, maybe even not like anything themselves, but work on communication and kind of have that imagination piece. and a little bit of like being able to be a kid in a setting that's safe, or to explore parts about yourself again. So on that side of it, for me, it's nice. I want to say nice, maybe it's the right word, but it's fulfilling
Rewarding.
to see like other people be able to kind of use D&D or other RPGs as a way to maybe self-reflect or work through something, or just be able to again have that little bit of, you know, imagination or childhood. Like for me, I have a very boring grown-up job. To be on the flip side, be able to sit and play D&D with my friends is something that like I would not really get anywhere else. So yeah, it's I think it's something that can be so cathartic and like helpful and healing, just either like as a release for stress, or if you are maybe inadvertently kind of working through something personal through your character.
Now, so you said you work with ASL?
ALC is what it's called.
ALC,
It's an area
I
learning
apologize.
center. Yep.
So
No, you're good.
how did that kind of like come about? Like what how do you go into something like that for people who may want to do something?
Yeah. For me it came about a little bit organically. I already worked in the school system. And we had gotten some new staff upstairs. It was something they had started, and then they were looking for staff to like volunteer DM, because it was like a 1 or 2 off, and they realized that the kids loved it, because I mean D&D, it's great, and B, again, like it's backed by a few studies. It can be a really good thing for people. And so it was one of those things where I just help out. I run when they need me to run, and it's one of those things that teenagers are terrifying.
Okay.
Extremely creative. They're terrifying. But they're also such a great group of kids to be able to work with, and this is something that you know, circumstantially in life that they really wouldn't have like ever had access to anywhere else. And so like that's another kind of neat part of it. But yeah, working in the school and then having staff that were willing to start this and create this was really neat.
So I guess maybe you might not know this. Is there for people that are like interested in starting these sort of groups, do you have any advice for them, or any like starting place where they may be able to go?
I guarantee you there's probably really good resources you could find online. Just offhand, as someone who works like in the main administrative office in the school district, if you're wanting to start a club or maybe potentially offer something, either reaching out to your local community education director, or even like the high school principal, or for this particular program, it's the ALC coordinator, and saying, hey, this is something I was wondering if you would want to offer as an extracurricular and after school. I'd be willing to put my like time and energy into this. And there's a bit more of a process. There's the logistics to it, of course, on like the school's side. More times than not, a lot of school districts are always happy to be able to offer something new. And I'm gonna hate to say it, but to be able to offer it at really no cost to themselves, other than maybe offering that space. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. As now that you're like, number one, creating in the space between your costumes, the work you do at the Crit Awards, love you, Crit Awards, between Queer and Present Danger, the work you do at the ALC, the work you do at Queer and Present Danger, how do you take feedback and like your audience, whether they be direct or indirect audience, how do you kind of take feedback from them and I guess move forward, and how much do you integrate in yourself, and how much do you just let kind of like fly off the back?
Oof. I think for me, and it definitely was like, I will say this, like, this is something that is learned over time.
Mm-hmm.
I do not mind if you are going to provide criticism. Of course, 100%. Anytime something like that is given to me, or maybe to a project I'm working on or with, normally there is something to what they're saying that you can either take or learn from, or maybe adjust next time to what you're doing. The other part of that is being able to realize that everything should also be taken with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Of maybe it's more opinion based, maybe this is something that like structurally or like integral to what you're got going on. So if someone says, oh, next year you should clarify this paragraph that you guys sent out to make it more understandable, great, we can take that feedback and apply it next year. We're not going to, obviously, like, you're never going to take that personally of like, you messed up.
Right.
And I think like being able to separate sometimes the tone of the message from what they are trying to get across is a really important piece of it. But just because someone offers feedback does not mean you are obligated to do anything with it. That is another kind of portion of that. So for me personally, and with things that I work on, I very much will take what I can and what I'm able to apply going forward. And anything that I can't, or that I won't like let myself give my energy to, I'm just gonna leave to the side, and that is okay as well. Again, it's very much thank you for your input,
Right.
and I will see what that looks like going forward. Opinions are great, especially constructive ones, or if there's a real concern there. 100% I'm going to take that and apply it where it needs to be applied. But yeah,
Let me ask you this, and you may not have the answer. What would be some like safety tools you feel like a DM should have to be able to accept those criticisms, whether they be presented in not the greatest way or not? Like, what would you suggest for the DM? That's the person receiving the criticism.
Yeah. I mean, as a DM, depending on where that criticism is coming from, if it's coming from your players, a lot of times I like to sit down and maybe work through how I can better incorporate or maybe take something off the table that allows them to feel more comfortable or allows the story to continue forward. But that turns more into a conversation of us sitting down. If it's someone outside of the table, again, in the space we exist in, there are so many shows, there are streams, podcasts. Not every podcast is going to be your cup of tea. Not every stream is going to be what you want it to be. And while yes, giving your opinion and giving that criticism or thought to them, like as a DM, it's gonna sound a little like crass, but like I'm not obligated to do anything with that. I am telling a story with my players. And while I love especially constructive feedback, 100%, I will consider everything that is ever said to us.
Right.
But as a DM, I'm not obligated to do anything with that unless it is coming from my players. Again, there's so much you can go and look. I guarantee you can find a stream that is exactly what you're looking for somewhere. And if ours is not that, while I would love it to be, and I'd love for you to be here, if it's not what you want to watch, then yeah.
So let me ask you this maybe a little more specifically. When you're DMing at like a convention and say a player is negative, we'll say that much. We'll put it that way. How would you protect yourself, or at least be able to put some sort of filter on it that you're able
Mhm.
to cope with that, because that can be a very traumatizing experience, especially for a new,
Yeah.
like someone going into that experience for the first time.
Mhm. Um,
And if you don't have the answer, I understand. I'm kind of throwing this one on you, so
no, you're good. Like I said, I do jam a lot, and I
right,
jam a lot of like Cthulhu and some other more horror-based games like Delta Green. Um, there are instances where, again, you've sat down at my table, we have never met. I will run through basic expectations of what my table looks like. Um, and when you're signing up, there's the premise of the story, but my jamming style may not be
right,
what you'd like to play with. And for the most part, I will adjust to the vibe of my table as much as I'm able to.
right,
Again, I jam how I jam. Everyone's a little different.
yeah,
Um, and a lot of times, players, again, being at a convention, understand that every table is going to be different. I have had instances where I have had to ask people to excuse themselves from my table. It's very far and few between. Um, but if it is to the point where you are obviously not having a good time and you are, upsetting other players or ruining the mood or just being disruptive because you're not enjoying the game or my style, I have had to ask people to leave. Otherwise, like a gentle correction sometimes of, oh, actually, they don't need to make that roll. If they needed to, I'll ask for it, or whatever what the situation may be. Sometimes just a gentle correction and then moving right on. Because I don't want to draw focus to that player or the behavior if I don't have to.
right,
Um, it can be hard. As for like the feedback, again, I do enjoy when people give me feedback when the game has finished because that does help me grow as a DM. And it also just provides me a little more insight to, again, jamming at a convention is a completely different
right.
thing than any
whole
other
different beast.
setting. But it can be, whether it's like a more hurtful feedback or if it's just really good feedback. It's helpful. It's all helpful in the long run.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you answered my question, but okay.
I don't know. That's a hard one, and all I could think of was I have had both bad and good feedback experiences, and dealing with it is very much in the moment, person by person.
All right. So let me ask you this then. When
Okay.
you are doing these things,
Yeah.
like whether it be
Mhm.
creating it on a live show or making costumes or like
Mhm.
any of the things you do, what part of it do you find the most rewarding, like when you're doing these content creation sort of things, with these creation sort of things, not even content?
Yeah. Oh goodness. Again, I'm kind of very much the person who I kind of am happiest when I am making someone else really happy. So completing that cosplay request, putting someone in a costume for the first time, or as a player, kind of having those moments in story where, like, and you'll understand, like when the entire table has clicked, you're in a scene and like everyone's role playing, and you're able to like be a part of that, especially if it's for maybe a scene someone else set up, or it's a key moment in someone else's story, and you're kind of able to like help them get there, help them get to that point. Like on like on the RPG side of it, I guess, away from like the costuming portion, I I just enjoy being able to tell a story with my friends.
Yeah.
I think that's the most rewarding part, is when everyone's comfortable having a good time and you are able to kind of create something all together. I think that's probably the most rewarding part for me.
Okay. So as a player and like more specifically in your role play kind of sense, when there is an audience, how much of the audience's expectations kind of play into the way you role play your character?
Funnily enough, I really do not take too much of that into consideration from the mindset of I know my character. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes there are definitely community-led bits that will become a thing, 100%. I'm guilty on both sides as being the community member that continues to use that bit, or a player who will pick it up either as the player or as the character. That's fun. That's something that you can do with members of your community that is just entertaining, and it's fun and it's harmless.
Right.
As for like informing how I play my characters, I typically, like, again, I know my character. I know how she would react. And if that's different than how someone else would have played the moment, that's one of those moments of it kind of is what it is. But yeah, I think it is fun to have community engagement 100%, but I don't really let it sway what I'm doing either as a DM or a player too much.
Yeah, that's fair. So what part of like creating in front of a community do you find like the most rewarding, as far as that's like what do you get, what part of that do you feel like the most rewarding part to you?
I love when the people who are watching, who are interacting with what you're creating, are invested in what you're doing. When they're just as surprised by what just happened as you all are as players. Or I think it sounds so horrible. One of my favorite things is like if you've had such a connecting moment or an emotional moment and you actually manage to have the people watching also have that emotional reaction.
Yeah.
Like, I think a little bit of that, it's like a little bit what you go for, is being able to, again, you're creating that story, but be able to have it mean something to people watching.
Yeah.
Is really kind of neat.
Yeah. You just like making people cry. I get it. You're an evil, horrible person.
That's me. I do, in fact, enjoy making people cry.
Caitlin, the emotional terrorist.
Well, that's a new title, but okay, we'll add that to the list.
So
very nice.
I'm glad I'm out here fucking just
chaos gremlin and emotional terrorist. I'm here for it.
You can add that to your Instagram title.
I will, just for you, Joe.
So as this creator, how do you kind of go about portraying diverse characters in your storytelling without coming off as like stereotypical or like a caricature?
It's both like one of the easiest and kind of hardest things, I guess I can kind of say, is in the way that I just try and be extremely cognizant of anything that I try and be cognizant of anything that I am saying or doing as a DM. Which again, it's really easy to do when you think about what you're about to do before you do it. It's easy to not step into kind of, again, like those stereotypes. I very much DM in a character first kind of style. Like, this is a person I'm portraying. It's not, it's not a race, it's not a class, it's not what have you. This is a person. And yeah, I recognize that I am who I am, and my life experiences are vastly different from everyone else's. So I do try and be very cognizant again of just what I'm saying or doing. And it's something that I just do. It's one thing, I guess if we go back to a little bit to Cthulhu, again, the era that it's representing, and just when like the original ones were written.
Right.
Some of the original works are not particularly correct or
Yeah.
good in how they address things. I, as a
Yeah.
GM, obviously do not use that.
Right.
I can tell the story without any of that incorporated.
Right. No one is out
Um,
here fucking like supporting HP Lovecraft the person. Like, great guy.
yeah, it's one of those things where, again, like, you can take any story you're given, and it is how you choose to tell that
Right.
story.
Right.
That I'm hyper aware of constantly. But yeah. Also, yeah, shout out to Lydia for making me cry.
Fucking Lydia. I think you are. All right. So how do you kind of stay inspired and generate the fresh ideas that you have, whether it comes to new games, new episodes of a show, like when you're, you know, your plot lines for Lydia, Ashira, fucking Lydia's on my brain now.
Oh goodness. Honestly, with Ashira, I feel like she might be one of my most reactionary characters. Our party has 2 children in it who are the most chaotic, adorable little monsters that do exist, and I love them dearly. Ashira very much more is the I'm gonna react to whatever is happening in the current storyline. Because I don't ever know what's going to come from Dom or Rima at any given moment.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful chaos. As for my other characters, even like as a DM, I love to just draw inspiration from other things around me. And sometimes like, it's a cooperative story. Sometimes someone puts something out there that you can just take and run with. And those are probably some of my favorite moments of being able to like just jump in on something that someone else presented and just go with it.
Now, how much of an improvisational? Right? That's the word, right? You know what
Improvisational?
I mean. Improvisational, that's the word. How much improvisational?
How much do I improv?
Yeah. Or as a player specifically, like how much do you plan out for your character? Like, hey, I want my character to have this sort of journey, and how much is it like? I'm fucking just riding out. I'm riding the fucking wave, baby.
I think it's a solid mix of both being along for the ride. I always like to have a handful of both short-term and long-term goals as a character, like that I know that they want to accomplish. And that's something that I like to occasionally touch base with my DM over, because it's something that's going to change over time as the story continues, as your character grows and changes. I like to have a general idea of what they are wanting to do, but also realizing, again, there's how many people at the table. There's also main quest stuff going on. And yes, I mean, a lot of it probably is more improv in the moment. Very rarely, unless like the DM's giving you a heads up, or it's one of those things where you recognize at the end of the last session of, oh, we're almost to like my hometown or to a piece that I know is integral to my backstory. Those I might think a little bit more about how I'm going to react to certain NPCs or certain events that I'm pretty sure are about to happen. That's a little more thought out. But for the most part, it's just improv. It's just jumping in and going with the flow.
So, let me see. Where are we at here? You're typing.
I'm so sorry. I have the loudest keyboard and that is the quietest that I can type. That's on me. It gets me during stream too. It's okay.
So are there any like dream projects that you kind of want to work on like right now? Is there anything that's been calling out to you that you really want to dive in on?
Oh goodness. That's actually a really good question.
I know. That's all I have are good questions.
I mean, yeah, all of these have been absolute bangers. I mean, there are some new things either that are just like recently coming out or that will be coming out from some of my friends that I'm excited to like play test or mess around with. Again, our community is constantly releasing things, and I think just being involved even in the I would love to play test this at my table way and then provide that feedback. I think that's where I'm at right now is I know that there's some really neat things that have been recently released, either by larger names or smaller. And some stuff that I know like I have friends working on that I'm just excited to at some point be able to experience what they've created. I am not blessed to be created in this like creative in the same way that they are.
Right.
And like it's fun to be along for the ride and just support my friends and all like the crazy things that they do.
Is there any systems like you're really looking forward to trying?
I know Dagger Heart's been out for a little bit, and I do have a friend that is getting ready to run that, so I'm excited to play around in that. Oh goodness. Watch as I go pull this up real quick. Please hold. So I'm gonna give a shout out to someone here, maybe. I can definitely find it. Please hold. Yeah. One thing, if you follow me on Twitter, I've shared it. Shout out if you follow me there. Hanscait everywhere.
Yeah.
Petra, who I adore, they have been working on a new TTRPG, Bellum Arcana, and they have a playtest edition that's coming out, I believe, in June. And they kind of just released a little bit of a first look at it on Twitter. So if you follow me there, you can find where I've shared that. That's something I'm excited for. And just I have other friends and people that I know that are continuously working on creating things and releasing, and it's just as exciting to see what new things are constantly coming out.
But there's no like one specific one you're like most excited for?
No.
Just all the things.
All the things, constantly. That is the crux of existing in this space. There's always too many TTRPGs to play, Joe.
Yeah. So as we're kind of getting ready to wrap up here, like, what was like coming up in this space? What was the moment you feel like solidified where you just want to do this forever? Maybe not forever, but where like you're like, this is who I am. This is what I love doing. Was there a moment in your life where you kind of came to that realization?
Yeah, some Niles. That's what I'm looking forward to, Joe. I will actually be deeply exploring that system. Oh goodness. I guess probably in college, I was lucky enough, like on my floor, I had a group of friends. Every Saturday we would all get together and play, and a lot of times it was D&D. But we would do like short arcs where someone would take a turn DMing for like 6 to 8 weeks. We would finish that arc and then we would trade off. And I feel like there was a moment where like that was so fun and like so integral to what I was doing at a time that was so stressful in my life. And we all kind of, I hate to say it, like grew up and grew out of it a little bit where towards the end of like my college experience, we weren't able to do that as much anymore. And we kind of made a choice as a group that a couple times a year, no matter where we were, we would all get together and we would like spend a weekend together and we would just play and hang out. And I think having that such like close knit group of friends brought together through D&D, funnily enough. Like these are some of the closest people that I have in life. Being able to continue to do that now, like well into our late 20s, well out of college.
Yeah.
Like D&D gave me some of my best friends time and time again. And I think that's something that like has solidified it for me as something that I want to continue doing, because I would not have met all of the just incredible people that I am so proud to be able to call my friends if I had not been in this space.
So if you could reach back and talk to that young Hans. I don't know. I always say it like you're a German. Hans.
Hans. Yeah.
What message would you leave to her? And what do you kind of hope to be your impact on this space now that you're kind of like a little bit more out in the public eye and you're trying to, you're doing all these things? What kind of impact do you hope to leave?
I guess specifically to myself, at the beginning, like before the first time I ever DM'd or going forward, trying anything new, again, it's that it's okay to do it and be afraid. Because I'm someone who very much like will get anxious or just be so nervous for something that I'm like, nope, I can't do it, and will back out. And especially like young me with like upper secondary, upper high schoolers, it was probably really like, it felt nice to be included. And looking back, like shout out to them for including like the nerdy young kids first year in the theater program. Like they weren't just like, we want nothing to do with you. Shout out to them for being super inclusive. And I think maybe that's kind of what, if anything to be known for, is to be someone that just encourages people to try something new and to do it whether you're afraid or not. And hopefully they end up loving it. And if they don't, they have that experience and have tried something outside of their normal wheelhouse. And maybe they take something away from that.
Amazing. All right. Well, we're going to start to switch over to our viewer questions. So if you have a question, which I'm sure a lot of you will just make fucking questions for Hans at this point, knowing
what could possibly go wrong,
right? Knowing you people. So we're gonna start off. While we wait for those questions to come in, we're going to start off with a little bit of the cast most likely before we go into,
okay, yeah, let's go.
Before we go into some of the dicey questions. Let's see. What do we want to ask here? Who is the most likely to give the entire party's gold to a homeless man?
Accidentally, 100% Bloom. On purpose. Probably Ashira.
Okay. Why Ashira?
We kind of touched on it a little bit of like, she doesn't feel the need to keep gold for herself outside of the only thing she wanted to have enough for was to buy a diamond. For worst case scenarios. Growing up, again, she has where she was raised on the island, like money was a thing, but it wasn't like the end all, and very much being a part of like her temple and stuff. Like she doesn't like have that inadvertent need to have it. She would rather give it to someone who needs it more, or if she's gonna have it and spend it, it's on something important like a diamond, because you know, as a cleric, it's a good idea to have a diamond on you. Yeah.
Keep those community questions coming in while we ask more of these. Oh my god. Who is the most which character would most likely be your friend in real life?
Ooh. In real life? Maybe Talia?
Okay, why?
Yeah,
Why Talila?
probably
Talila.
Talia. I feel like Talia and I would just be able to like vibe.
Okay.
And like I would love to have a conversation with Talia about the like I can't honestly about upbringing a little bit
Okay.
because I don't want to ruin what I know out of character about their character.
Okay. All right, I got a two-parter here.
Okay.
Most likely to commit a war crime on accident, and
Yep,
most likely to commit a war crime on purpose.
You know, on accident, like inadvertently, 100% Bloom. On purpose? Oof. Honestly, it's probably a toss-up between Toby and maybe Shira.
What?
But like, okay, we've talked about this after game before. Obviously, Bloom has accidentally lit a temple on fire. Inadvertent, so hers would be the inadvertent war crime. She just honestly wouldn't know, or it would just be so outside of her control. I feel like Toby would decide in the moment of like, this is what needs to happen, guys, and just like Geneva Convention out the window.
Go ham. The Geneva suggestions are no longer here.
I specifically for Ashira, because we've touched on it a little bit in game. I feel like she would be so upset by something that was happening that she would maybe like partially lose control, or would just like not like she would just purposely like let all control of what she's got going on go, and would just like level the ground if she had to.
Yeah.
Like if she was that upset. And like that's a choice.
Yeah.
That's a choice she probably might make at some point.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. So, who's the most likely to arm wrestle an orc?
Toby.
Toby? Oh my god.
See, Toby would walk up and be like, I got this, guys, and just like sit down and be all cute and be like, I could definitely arm wrestle you. I'm pretty sure he tried to, maybe not arm wrestle, he like sized up a half orc at a bar at some point when we walked in, and we were like, what is going on? And it was so good.
Little man, you need to back up.
It would be Toby. Toby has the confidence of, I don't even know.
All right, one last one.
Okay.
Who's the most likely to be eaten by a mimic?
I mean, I did just stick my hand willingly through a magic mirror.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair.
So, I mean, it might be Ashira. I want to say Toby or Bloom. Honestly, maybe Bloom. Bloom does enjoy looking in every single thing. Kind of like she went through every single bag in Princess Anessa's room. It might be Bloom. However, I have been known to just be like, I know this item's magical. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
That's a 50-50.
All right. All right. So we're going to move over to our Dicey Questions segment where we're going to roll a d20 and ask some questions. While that's happening, this is the last opportunity to get those questions in. So go ahead and throw them in the chat right now. And we're going to get to them after we do a few of these. So go ahead and roll a d20 for me.
Okay. No, this one. 9.
If you could live in any fantasy world, which would you choose?
I feel like I talked about it a little bit earlier. Like the Graceling world from Christian Kishore, or because dragons. right?
Okay.
Allegasia, which is like the main continent in the Aragon series.
Okay.
By Christopher Polini. Chris Polini. What is it called? Inheritance Cycle.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if anyone ever read Aragon or watched the movie. I'm not upset by the movie. Some people are. It's controversial. That would just be fun. I mean,
What up, Tech? What up, Tech?
But yeah, it'd have to probably be that. I mean, the easy answer would have been Lord of the Rings, because I feel like that's almost everyone's like easy. Like, I would exist there, but
Yeah.
I just want to ride a dragon and be cool. Like, I don't.
You ever read The Dragon Riders of Pern?
I feel like yes.
I mean, it's all Dragon Riders, and there's like 12 books.
Ooh. I feel like maybe I have so many books, but anyone who knows me and has existed in my house, you can ignore that last question, Joel.
Sure, that's what I'll do.
Yeah. I have so many books. I've read so many things. I think
Yeah.
another like good dragon one is like Eon and Iona. That's another really good like bound to a dragon, got their power type book.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Dragons are cool.
Understatement of the century. Go ahead and roll another d20 for me.
Okay. 18.
18. Ooh, I love this. This is my favorite question. What's your favorite Studio Ghibli film?
Okay. First off, they're all phenomenal. Secondly, Spirited Away is so good. It is like just one of those nostalgia ones that I just adore. One that I don't think a lot of people say enough is Tales from Earthsea.
I've never seen that one.
You should watch it.
I see it on Max all the time.
Surprisingly enough, it has like knights and dragons and stuff in it.
Sold.
Imagine the vibe. There's not a theme here at all. But those are probably my two favorite.
Yeah.
They're all so good though.
All right.
So good.
Give me one more, and then we're going to switch over to the chat questions.
4.
Oh. Favorite character in sci-fi or fantasy, and you can include your own character if you're that self-centered.
That's me. Oh goodness, in sci-fi or fantasy. I mean, probably Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. Strider.
Okay. Why Aragorn?
I just like I was one who like I read the books well before I watched the movies, and I just I feel like just his story and very much the being extremely aware of what your like legacy is supposed to be, and just his whole journey to get there, and I don't know, I just his story in the book and in the movies, I know I've always loved.
Huh?
Could have gone Legolas and just said, I mean, hot elf man, but we went with the actual answer. So.
All right. So there's still time to drop your questions while we're just going to start working through these. So Lydia wants to know if it's them versus the Mazes, who's going to win?
Ooh. I mean, there are 2 Maz here. However, Lydia is actually an Eldritch Fae being, in which case I have to give it to Lydia.
Right, yeah. I mean, how do you fight the Eldritch Fae? So Cola May wants to know, how do you handle a PC death at a table?
Ooh. Yeah, those can be hard. I think like as a DM when it happens, I 100% believe in allowing that player to have like that last moment. And you know, if the table has that capability to bring them back or what have you, of course that's always an option. After a character has died, as a DM, I typically like to step aside with that character and we'll have a little chat, because sometimes they don't want that character brought back.
Right.
Or if they do, I will find a way as a DM to make that happen. Because again, I am there to facilitate a story between myself and my players. And sometimes it happens. It's a game where death is an option. And I very much like it can and it does happen. As a player, when it happens, it can be really emotional, whether it's your own character or someone you've been playing with. And I think you can get some really intense emotional role play from that. And I think it can lead to some actually like really beautiful moments, and the story that can be told coming out of that event can be just, again, a really powerful moment in like the whole arc of your story as a group. Yeah.
Let's see. Do you have a favorite quote from a game?
Oh my gosh. It was a home game. And it was an RP between me and a different character. And basically it was to the extent of like we're endgame, and he was basically betrayed the whole party. It was just someone that like our characters were like in love with each other, and offered me you know, you can either I think like kind of my quote to the extent was somewhere along the line you forgot that if you burned the gods, I burned with them, or I would burn with them. And his response back was, I guess that's your choice to make, either you can sit beside me on this throne or you can die screaming with your gods. And it was like to that extent, it was just like one of those things where it was just like so in the moment.
Yeah.
And this is a player that we have RP'd with together like for years. We have that level of trust to do an intense scene, but it was emotional, and it probably was one of those things where like it stuck with me afterwards, where I was like, what just happened? Otherwise, from like our stream, I think the funniest one that I managed to break the whole table with was oh, chicken, you mean the tuna of the land?
My
and
God.
honestly, it was so stupid, and it broke the whole table, and I was sitting on it for weeks. I was waiting for the moment to use it, and I was so proud of myself. It's so stupid. It was, you know, do you have any, what's it called? Oh yeah, chicken, tuna of the land. And everyone was like, no, that's not. It's like, it's so dumb.
All right. Do you have a favorite trope or cliche for a character?
Oh goodness. I mean, I'm always a fan of the like choosing to, I guess, I don't know, like sacrifice a part of yourself knowing it's going to save the whole table and also make the entire table hate you. Like a good instance is like making a pact or a deal, knowing that like in the long run it's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, like everyone else, like we could have gone out of it, we could have not done this. And like I think that's one of my favorite like tropes, is that like sacrificial in a bad way, but normally like comes with a redemption arc at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. What is your go-to monster?
Ooh. I love beholders.
Okay. Why beholder?
One of the things I like to do as a DM is I'll take a beholder and I'll maybe flavor it a little different, or there are like different variations of beholder you can choose from. They can be extremely frustrating for a party to deal with. But they also aren't like, it can be a difficult fight that I know my players can in fact do, but it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy, but it's also typically not, for the most part, a life or death battle. I just think it's fun to throw one at them at certain points, and again, you can really mess with your players using a beholder. They have so many different like the eye rays, the beams.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to mess with your players without it just inherently being deadly. So it can make for a complex, fun fight. I think those might be one of my favorite monsters. It's a fun fight.
And our last question. Not me thinking we were talking about the energy drink. Yep. All right.
White monster. That's an easy one. It's the only one I drink. I'm here for you, Flocka.
Let's get into our last question then. Explain to me Nonimus in 30 seconds or less.
Shit. Okay. Oh my god, how do I even... Okay, so Nonimus is Nonome and Aramis. Aramis is me. Nonimus is an NPC. He is a protector to a goddess. When we met him, some shit was going on. He couldn't talk. My character could talk in his head. We forged a bond. He got really protective over her, and then she panicked and was like, well, I literally was just sacrificed to a god by my boyfriend like 3 weeks ago. Maybe I'm not ready for a commitment. And also, so she sent him away. He gets kidnapped by the bad people we were trying to get away from. She feels super duper guilty about it and is like, we need to get them back. So she makes a second deal with her patron, which was a bad decision. Her patron is not a good patron. It's real rough. I love my patron though. It's great. Another god, which is one of like the 4 bad gods, another one shows up and pretends to be Nonome. Aramis believes it is Nonome. Everything's great. They end up like, time goes on. It's months later, what have you. She admits that she loves this person. It's not Nonome. We find out that in fact, Nonome is still locked away and like was tortured and all these things. So Aramis feels absolutely horrible. He gets out, or we end up going back to rescue him after my ex showed up, also pretending to be Nonome. That was a whole thing, the one that sacrificed you to the god in the first place. And then we end up, like, that was the whole situation. We move on. We finally get to the spot where we can rescue Nonome, and then Aramis is like, see, I was right, you should have nothing to do with me, and it was like a whole thing, but then we made up, and it was really nice, but also, she said I love you to the wrong guy, and he's 100% holding it over her. And there's what you missed on Glee.
All right. I feel like I don't understand it anymore.
No, you're not going to understand any of it.
The answer is no, Lydia. The answer is no.
The most panicked lore drop you will ever get. But Lydia did make some really great fan art of the two of them, so like I'm okay with it. The trauma's great. We're here for it.
I mean, that's the reason we play D&D, is for the trauma.
Exactly.
All right, so as we're getting ready to wrap up, is there anything you'd like to plug? Where can people catch you next?
I mean, yeah, you can find me, again, all my socials are Hanscait at Hanscait. That's Twitter, Facebook, don't go to Facebook, please, for the love of God. Instagram, technically TikTok. kind of those main places. Otherwise, kind of, I'll pop in for one-shots on the various streams. I will always, of course, throw those out. I'm here on New Age Geeks every other Wednesday for Queer and Present Danger. Joined by the lovely Cece, who's hanging out in the chat. Otherwise, coming up, I mean, I think Gen Con is my next convention. Typically, I'm at 6-7 conventions every year. A lot of times I am jamming or just hanging out and playing. I do sometimes run locally here in Minnesota some DDAL related games. It's Dungeons & Dragons Adventure League. So you can find me online there when kind of just I'll post out when I'm helping run events. And then, yeah, Crit Awards, that's coming up. You have through the end of the month to do your initial submission. Shortly thereafter, yeah, you know what Joe wants you to do. Joe would really appreciate it. However, nominate who you want to nominate. Full send it, you know? There's a lot of people going on. One of them is, of course, Joe and Neg and everyone else here. They're all amazing. But yeah, second round... So actually voting for who would win will be opening up here shortly, which should be super exciting. Really, I think that's about it. If you're at the Minnesota Renaissance Fair, I'm there every single weekend.
I also want to shout out Hands for Best Player for Queer and Present Danger for the Crit Awards. Let's fucking get her nominated too.
You know, you could if you really want to. I'm okay if you nominate any other player in the history of players, so...
I'm a reppa. All right.
I will run the opposite way, Joe. I am backstage help far away from anyone actually perceiving me, so...
In serious question, can you win as a person who works on the show or no?
Technically, I think yes, because I'm not part of any production that's like a majority of Crit Awards people. I'm also not a board member, but also I don't want to be nominated.
You better fucking get this woman in the noms.
No, don't do it. Show love to anyone else.
All right. I think that brings us to our stopping point for tonight. Thank you again, Caitlin, for joining me. Thank you for everyone out there enjoying listening. Everyone in the chat for joining us here tonight at Investigation Check. Hope you've had a good time as we dive into the backstory of our amazing geeky creators. You can find us, let's see, we are back next week on maybe Tuesday for Spell Shots, definitely Wednesday for Queer and Present Danger. On Monday, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to be hanging out in the community chat on our Discord server. The link is going to be posted in the chat, where you can come hang out with us and everyone from the cast. Tomorrow, Monday night, same usual time, maybe a little bit later, depending on when everyone's running, where we get to just hang out, answer some questions, hang out, have a good time. Stick around for more announcements for Investigation Check. I've got a couple creators that I'm going to be reaching out to. We'll see if I can get them on. Now that I have a lot more time in my schedule. I don't think I have anything else. Hands, do you have anything else?
No, just thanks to you for being wonderful, and shout out to everyone who's still hanging out in the chat with us.
Yes,
you guys are great. I have enjoyed the chaos you have brought here tonight. And yeah, just thanks for having me.
You can catch us most on the days I just said at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Until then, I encourage you all to follow and subscribe to our channels, YouTubes, Instagrams, TikToks, all those good things. Love you, geeks. Good night.
Love you. Bye.